Welcome everybody to another crash course. Thank you for showing up. And I just want to do a brief intro and extend a warm welcome and thank you to Leann Sterling. Am I pronouncing your name correctly, Leann?
Yeah, you got it.
Perfect. So brief intro, Leann is a student at the prestigious Sheridan College. Wrong.
It's in Waco specifically.
Yeah. And she is a student of the game design program. And I thought it would be awesome if she could just step through her experiences with the program, so we in the Discord could get an understanding of the, I guess, more formal education for game development and design. So I just want to extend a thank you and a warm welcome to Leann. Floor is now yours.
All right, thank you. I'm very excited to be here. Hi, I'm Leann. I'm going to be talking to you about the game design course at Sheridan. Before I can really, right. Oh, okay, hang on. Sorry, I'm just realizing that my push to talk key also changes the slides back. So I'm going to just change that really quickly. All right, awesome. Right, so before we get into it, I do have a couple of quick disclaimers. First of all, I can really only talk about my own personal experiences. It may be different for anyone else that attended Sheridan that you asked. Also, a lot of very unusual things happened in my time at Sheridan that affected my experience. There was a strike in my first year, and so we kind of lost 5 weeks of classes because of that. And then, of course, in my last year, COVID hit, and that also affected things, making everything change to online only. Also, since my time, the program structure has changed. I think 2 years after I entered, they changed the program structure for incoming students. So that is also something to be aware of. Hi, I'm Leann. I am a Sheridan Game Design graduate, technically, very recent graduate. My main interest is game writing, and in general, I just love games and think they're neat. So I'm going to get started with just a very brief overview of Sheridan in general. So it's a 4-year program. It's based in Oakville, as we said before, which is in Ontario, Canada. It's about 2 hours away from downtown Toronto. It is considered a Bachelor of the Arts degree, and to be eligible to apply, you have to have the equivalent of at least grade 12 Canadian math and English, which our Jamaican system does count as equivalent of that. You also need at least 4 other grade 12 subjects, and you are required to submit a portfolio, which the requirements for said portfolio will change every year. My personal overview is I chose games because I wanted to make things. I chose Sheridan specifically because it's in Canada and I had family nearby, so I figured if anything happened, they'd be around to help. It's significantly cheaper than any of the US schools that offer game design. I did do research into the school before I started, and it seemed like it would be a good program. I do want to say though, now that I have kind of completed it, it's definitely not for everyone. It's not suitable for any and everyone. I don't think it's really enough to just be a good student. So if you're just going to show up to classes and do your homework and say, all right, that's not really going to be enough to get you anywhere. So I want to start off by talking about some of the good things at Sheridan, things that I think worked well and that I really enjoyed or that I feel that I've learned from. For starters, it is very much like a mini version of the game industry, and that's a good and bad thing, but I'm going to focus on the good parts first. It's very much an early introduction to what the industry is like. You're going to be involved in every step of making a game. You're going to be making pitches, you're going to be planning, designing, and implementing your own ideas. You are able to develop soft skills like leadership abilities and working in teams and communication. You get a lot of hands-on experience every step of the way. You're involved in your own documentation for all of your projects. There's networking opportunities both inside and out of classes, both with teachers, students, and industry guests who will visit from time to time. A major thing that I really enjoyed about Sheridan is something that they call Sprint Week. So what that is once every semester you have a week-long game jam. So you have a week to make a game based on a challenge that they present at the beginning of the week. And every semester is going to be a different, unique challenge. You're put into groups of randomized first through third year students, about 5 students per team. At the end of the week, you make a trailer, and that trailer is judged by professionals who will then play your games and kind of rank them um, for their preference of what a game is. So, as an example of some of these games, on the left, I have an image of me and my team in my second year, where we had to make a game with an alternate controller. And because it was October and it was near to Halloween, my team chose to make a horror game using Ouija boards as a controller. On the right, I have another image from my third year where my team decided to make a point and click kind of narrative puzzle game that's also horror based, that was also in October. You also get industry experienced professors, and this is one of the big selling points of Sheridan. So professors will have experience in the fields that they teach. So what that means is if you're in a level design class, your level design teacher has worked as a level designer at some point in their career. Teachers have worked both in indie studios and in AAA studios, so they can kind of provide insight on both sides of the industry. They can be very valuable resources and connections. And it feels kind of scummy to refer to people as resources, but what I mean by that is generally they're very willing to help you and answer questions. So if you're trying to learn more, you can reach out to the teachers and they'll help you understand better what the industry is like, or they'll answer any questions you might have, or they might even act as a connection, being able to introduce you to others in the industry or reaching out to companies they might have worked with previously and say, hey, this is my student so and she's really good at this thing. You should get in contact with her. There's also great access to equipment and software. So all of the game design labs have a double monitor setup. One of the labs is also equipped with Wacom tablets at every workstation. So if you have any art assignments that you need to do, those are available. You have access to both free and paid software that are available for free through the school. So things like the entire Adobe suite of products are all there. Maya, which is a 3D modeling software, Spine, which is a 2D animation software, Reaper, which is an audio software, of course, things like Unity and Unreal Engine. All of that is available for free through the school. There's also an equipment room with additional hardware if you need to rent it. So that's completely free of charge as long as you return the equipment by the due date. And that's anything physical that you might need to make a game, whether it's video cameras or microphones or additional controllers, or if you need a tablet pen for the Wacom tablets, they have those available. Anything physical you might need, you can find there. There are also ample opportunities to show off your work and your projects and kind of get used to talking about it. In particular, two very big events are Night of the Living Devs and Night of the Lovely Devs. Living Devs is in October and Lovely Devs is in February. And they're both presentations and showcases by students where you're able to apply, and if you're accepted, you can make a slideshow and a presentation talking to teachers and other students and occasionally industry guests to say, you know, here's this thing that I made, isn't it so cool? Here's all the work that went into it. You also get to dabble in pretty much every aspect of game making, which I think is super, super important. I kind of went into Sheridan already knowing I'm interested in games. I'm interested in writing. I would love to specifically work in writing. That's where my main area of interest is. However, if you're going in without knowing what your main area of interest is, this is fantastic because you get to try out everything. You get to try, design and art and animation and audio and writing and programming and cinematography and every step and every aspect of making games, including the business side of things. You also work on, production and industry practices. you get to test out all of that and figure out what parts of it you're most interested in, what parts you like the most, or what you're best at. And even if you are someone who, like me, like, oh, I know what parts of games I'm interested in, what parts I want to work in, you're still able to. I still think it's important because that way you can get a better understanding of every aspect of games. You are able to communicate with teams better because you understand. Even if I'm not good at programming, I have an understanding of what goes into programming, so I can communicate with my team's programmer better, for example. It also just gives you a better appreciation of all the work that goes into games and all the different aspects of it. There's also information on upcoming events. For the most part, it is just information. So teachers will say, hey, remember there's an event at X location at this time. And these are the things that are going to be happening at this event. But one event in particular that I really wanted to talk about is MIGS, which stands for Montreal International Gaming Summit. So it's an event that, as the name suggests, it takes place in Montreal. It's a really big, popular gaming event. And Sheridan offers a special package that if you go with them, you get a reduced price on tickets because it's a student package. And they also provide transportation to and from Montreal, as well as housing in Montreal. So really all you need to worry about is show up at the place on time and you're set. So that's a really fantastic opportunity. I've been twice and I can't recommend it enough. It's great. Another big part of Sheridan is co-op and preparations for co-op. So if you're not familiar with what co-op is, it's basically just a work term. You have to take this time and work in the industry and get that hands-on experience. In Sheridan's case, it's offered between third and fourth year, and you have to complete it in order to graduate. Now, this is when COVID hit for me when I was applying to co-op jobs. And of course, because of COVID, a lot of places started, there weren't as many jobs available as there ordinarily would have been. And even in that case, Sheridan was fantastic with coping with that and offering other opportunities. So they offered jobs through the schools. You could work at Sheridan and how that counts towards co-op. And in other cases, so such as my case, I found a co-op job, but it didn't meet the hour requirements that we needed to complete it. And so they were able to offer additional assignments that if you completed them, it would count towards that hour goal and you could still complete your co-op. They also provide a job board to apply to jobs through, which is fantastic as well because job hunting can be very tedious. You don't want to be applying to 10 different jobs on 10 different websites and have to keep track of everything. In this case, everything is right there on the Sheridan job board. You can see all the different jobs. You can apply through the job board. And you can even see when the job has been taken. So even if a company doesn't get back to you, you can see, oh, the position has been filled. I guess I could cross that one off the list. They also have classes for job prep. And this is going to include things like resume advice and how to write a cover letter and portfolio advice, how to make your portfolio compelling. All of that is very helpful. It's been helpful even after graduating. Now I'm applying to jobs. I have this information that I can look back on and go, okay, well, here's how you format a good resume. There are also regular industry guests that come in to talk to students. So they might be talking about the companies that they work at or their jobs specifically. So you might have someone come in and say, hey, I work at Ubisoft. Here's why you should work at Ubisoft too. Or, for example, I went to see a talk by a narrative designer and they kind of talk about, well, here's the difference between writing and narrative design, and here's how you make a good portfolio, and here's how I got into it personally, and all of that sort of information. You can use them as networking events or just for information. So if you want to go and introduce yourself to the speaker and kind of get to know them and try to make an impression, so that if you're ever applying to their company, they might say, hey, I remember that person. We should look at them. Or if you're not interested in that studio specifically, you don't want to necessarily network, you just want to learn more and get more information, you can also just do that. And they're completely non-mandatory. So if you're an artist and a level designer comes in and you have no interest in level design, there's absolutely no pressure to show up at all. Another big thing, so the last big thing I want to talk about is capstone. So the entire fourth year is, in theory at least, capstone year. And what that means is that the whole year is spent working on one game. You're able to choose your own team, which is fantastic because you don't have to worry about like, oh, what if I get put in a group with that one student who never pulls their weight? That's not an issue. You can pick who you want to work with. You get to decide everything about your game and everything that goes into it. You do get a professor and mentor who will meet with you regularly and might give advice or feedback on your game, but ultimately all decisions are up to you and your team. You also present your game regularly to industry guests, and when I say regularly, I mean usually once a week. Um, so you'll be able to have guests come in, and you can say, hey, again, you can say, hey, look at this game that I'm working on. Look at all the work that's going into it. Hire me, maybe. um, so now that we've covered some of the great stuff, let's get into some of the not so great things. So sorry, hang on. I will call you back. Yeah, you get to say, here are some of the not so great things about attending Sheridan. I mentioned earlier that a big selling point is that you get industry experienced professors, but that's not always the case. Not all of the professors there are actually industry experienced. A lot of, or not a lot, let me not say that. A few of the teachers that you will have and a few that I have had are actually recent Sheridan graduates. So what will happen is you graduate from Sheridan and then the next year you go back and start teaching at Sheridan. This is especially true for design teachers, which is obviously not so great. It is a game design program, and yet the courses that are specifically meant to teach game design have recent graduates for teachers, which can be frustrating not to have that inside the industry view and understanding. Another thing that I mentioned earlier is that it is very much a mini industry, and I talked about some of the good parts of that, but there are bad sides to it as well. So it does also mimic some of the ugly things that we hear about the games industry. I personally have had experiences of professors saying, oh, if you want to make it in this industry, if you want to get to a position of power, you have to be a white man. And as someone who is not a white man, that can be very discouraging. Um, Definitely, there are issues with some people that you don't necessarily want to be around. And I'm not talking about like socially awkward people or people who are maybe a little bit shy, but I'm talking about people who, are just creepy and inappropriate. Um, I'm talking about students who will show up and make sex jokes in class, and when no one laughs, they keep going anyway. And that's the type of person. And again, that's the vast minority, but they do definitely exist. Also, crunch exists here as well. This is to the extent, this is so serious that recently like within my time at Sheridan, they implemented a rule that students aren't allowed to be on campus or in the labs at least past 2 a.m. And they had to implement this rule because students would, stay in the labs overnight. They find students like sleeping under desks because they had to stay back late and get this work done because they have a deadline coming up, and sometimes that means I'm just going to stay at school overnight. Um, right. Another big issue is that there's a serious lack of diversity at Sheridan, and again, that does reflect in the industry as a whole. This is true both of students and professors. I can count on one hand all of the female professors and non-white professors combined that I've had in all 4 years, which is not, again, it's very discouraging when you're not a white man. Um, and to give you an idea of what it looks like as a student, in my first year, I was one of 5 women in my class. So again, it can be just very unsettling to be that outnumbered. Sheridan can also have some not so great organization. There's poor communication between the school and students, and even between the school and guests. We've had guest speakers who come in to see us present, and then when we start presenting, they go, "Oh, I didn't know this is what I was here for." It can also be hard to get answers at times, both from the school as a whole and from specific professors. If, say, you have a deadline for an assignment coming up, you say, "Hey, can you explain what the requirements are for this assignment to do well?" It can be difficult to really get an answer. Um, they're also not fantastic all the time at handling complaints. Sometimes students do complain about very valid issues, and those complaints aren't always addressed, or sometimes they're addressed inadequately, or you really have to, dig in and fight tooth and nail to get them addressed. These can include complaints to teachers, or about other students. Um, so again, that can be very frustrating at times. Closing thoughts. So when all is said and done, personally, I do think the pros outweigh the cons. I think I've had so many opportunities thanks to Sheridan that I wouldn't have gotten if I had gone anywhere else. I do think it was worth it, but like I said in the beginning, this definitely isn't a system for everyone. I think you need to do your own research and consider the things that I've talked about here today and weigh for yourself if you think this is an environment that you would thrive in. Um, Personally, again, I do think it was worth it and I enjoyed my time there and I wouldn't have changed anything. All right. Thank you very much. I'll be taking questions now. I do want to say if we run out of time or if there are questions you'd rather ask me in private, my DMs are open, or you can message me at Leann Sterling on Twitter. I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you very much for that presentation. It was super informative. Like we said, just opening up the floor to any questions. Just reminding everyone to kind of allow each one to speak. If you don't want to or are unable to use the mic, we do have the general talk thread um, where we can just post a question.
Yo, who is your favorite prof and why is it Vortic?
I was actually going to say Max. I am biased as someone who enjoys writing and who wants to excel there, but I think Max is fantastic. Wojtek is also fantastic, though. I'm not going to deny that.
True, true, true. I feel that. I feel that.
I think there is a background story there and there's room to discuss it.
Oh. I also attended Sheridan. I'm in Leon's here as well, so we both just graduated. Gang. Um, um. So yeah. No. Very nice presentation. Pretty accurate on all of those cases, I'd say. Hold on. Yeah. If anything, to just follow up on a few points too that I found interesting that you brought up. Um, the whole point of just showing up, doing your work, and dipping. Yeah, if you want to excel, you gotta kind of put in like the extra work.
Absolutely.
You gotta go sicko mode if you want to really stand out, because at the end of the day, even though people are your peers, they're your friends and everything, you're kind of still competing with them at the end of the day. And anything you can do to make yourself stand out really goes a long way. Uh, so that's a really good point. Um, Same thing when it comes to, especially around like our third year when co-op comes around, that's when it really starts to show. You know, everyone's applying for a lot of the same positions. We're all want to be game designers primarily, and not only are we competing against our classmates, there's also other schools around Ontario that provide game design. So they have Humber, they have OCAD, um, they have a school in Montreal that
Where's
also
George
provides game
Brown?
design. Yeah, George Brown. So, um, a lot of those things going in, you got to keep in mind when you're going in. There's a lot of factors that you probably don't realize or take into consideration when it comes to the workload, because the work is pretty manageable and our professors are very lenient when it comes to the learning outcomes. At the end of the day, they're more primarily focused on what you learn out of
Hmm.
each course, um, and less so being super hard ass when it comes to marking. But you got to take you the onus to be like, okay, sure, I can get a passing mark on this assignment, but also do I want to put them on portfolio later? It's
Right.
like how much extra work do I want to put in, kind of thing. Um, so there is that. Um, Also, socializing, I find is a very big point. Um, not
100%.
only in our year, but the years above you, if you can,
Hmm.
mix and mingle with those people. They have all the experience, especially if they're juniors, because they've gone through courses you haven't yet. They know professors you haven't met. They have a lot of advice and experience to give. So that was a really big thing that helped me going through. I'm friends with a lot of people in the year above me and the year above theirs, like maybe 2-3 years above myself. I kind of went out of my way to be friends with them. So that was a big thing. Um, the diversity thing is also pretty on point. Um, Leann and myself were the only ones from Jamaica,
Hmm.
obviously. Um,
I don't think there
and
was even
even when
anyone else from the Caribbean.
Ben from the year above
Ben,
was from
yes, yes,
Trinidad,
yes.
and there's a guy in the year below us, actually 2 years below. So he's in, I think, second year now. He's from
Hmm.
Jamaica as well. I think his name
I
was
think
Mike,
that was it. Yeah.
right? So that is actually true because in our year, um, I believe we were two of maybe six people of color, you know.
Hmm.
And when it comes to women of color, especially, then that goes down to maybe like three or
Yeah.
two, you know. So it's it can be kind of daunting to be the only kind of only person of your ethnicity and culture in the program, but for the most part, everyone's really friendly.
Yeah, people
They
tend
have
to be like super accepting. So
yeah,
even if they're not familiar with your culture and background, they are very willing to kind of listen to you talk about it and try to learn about it.
yeah, and everyone, and again, most of the people in our program, they all like video games as much as the next
Hmm.
person, so that's always a very um common ground to make friendships off. um So that was pretty good as well. I mean, it's just like a thing in Canada. We're the minority
Right.
here in Canada, so it's to be expected. Um, but yeah, really, really good experience overall. Um, Unfortunately, we didn't really get to work on anything together, though.
We
We kind of met
didn't.
each other. I think what second semester, second
Second
year.
year, second
Yeah.
year, yeah.
So most of the program was already behind us at that point. But yeah, good overall.
I see that there's some questions coming in the text chat, so I'm gonna go ahead and address some of those. What's school life like? So if you mean in terms of uh, like outside of classes, I'm assuming that's what you're referring to. Personally, I'm not the most social person around, but I do think there's plenty of opportunities to just like hang out. So there's plenty of places to go and eat. They have plenty of events, whether it's like club events or outside of that, there's even just like, hey, go to this drag show, anything you can think of. There's plenty of events to just hang out. In Halloween, they have like costume contests and things like that. So there's definitely opportunity to just hang out and socialize outside of school. Would you say it's essential to capitalize on crafts during summer for the same competition reasons? Yes, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Not just during the summer, but like if you have time outside of classes, even just doing that is a big advantage. Just work on whether it's work on learning how to do this specific thing, like maybe you want to improve your programming skills and you want to just take some time and focus on that outside of school, or if it's let me participate in some jams, let me work with some friends, let me try and make some fun games in my own free time, both during the summer and just generally outside of classes. Definitely super important. Having gotten your degrees, would you recommend studying game design? I know a lot of people in the industry who have both a traditional education and none within the gaming space. If so, what specifically was invaluable to you? There's definitely, okay, I'm going to say it like this, it depends. It depends. I do think there's some advantage just in terms of learning new information that you wouldn't have learned otherwise. So I didn't have any experience going into the program. I had absolutely no experience with games or game design other than playing games. No experience with it whatsoever. So from that perspective, I feel like definitely I've learned a ton. That's not to say you won't learn anything if you try to do it on your own time. Um, but I do think having, professors who have that hands-on experience, being able to be there and help you and give more information is very helpful. Additionally, the way it was explained to me and some of our classmates is that it's going to depend on whether you want to go into indie or AAA. With indie studios, there's a lower barrier of entry. Um, Typically, you don't have to have any formal education. You can just hop in, and as long as you show that you know your stuff, you can do work. With AAA companies, it's a little bit trickier. It's more competitive. You might be able to enter the AAA space with no formal education. However, some AAA companies will say, well, you've gotten to this point on like the corporate ladder, but we can't promote you any further because you don't have XYZ qualifications, which might include things like education. Um, so I hope that answered that question. Do you think the school is doing anything to address the lack of diversity? Yes, I think it's happening slowly. Um, I think part of it, in all fairness, it's not entirely the school's fault. Part of it is very much because of what the industry is like. So going back to the industry experienced professionals as teachers point, if you're especially trying to look for people who have industry experience to teach here, and most people who have industry experience are white men, that's going to reflect in who you hire. The same goes for incoming students. When you have an industry that's so heavily like predominant, I wrote a whole essay on this. You have an industry that's so like predominantly male oriented and white oriented. That means incoming students are going to look at this industry and say, well, this is a space for white men and I am not a white man, and so I'm not going to try and get into this industry. So that I think is part of why there is a serious diversity problem in Sheridan. I think any school you go to, you're going to see that diversity problem. I do think that it's something they're trying to address. I know recently there were issues of some professors and employees at the school who had a not so flattering view of people of color who were let go from the school, and the school did send out a lot of emails saying, here's the situation, really informing everyone about what was going on. Here's the situation, here's how we're handling it. They also do their best to keep students informed of things about other cultures. So like they'll send out emails like, hey, it's this cultural holiday. Here's some information about it so you can learn about it and inform yourself, which I think is a fantastic step. I am very politically correct. It is something I try to be aware of. Any advice for students looking to apply to Sheridan, especially around developing their portfolio? Consume games. Like, I think that's super. I mean, I feel like that's an obvious point, but it is an important point. You need to consume game media, play games, read up articles, find out information, and really do what you can to inform yourself ahead of time. I can say when I was applying, some of the requirements for my portfolio were things like, oh, write a short essay about a game that's important to you and why, things like that. So being able to pull on that information and say, here's why this game is important, or here's what I learned from this, or if I could tweak this experience, here's how I would do it. Also things like how you would improve on other games, give that some thought, or things that you think games did well. All of that is good information to think about. Do they teach the business of the gaming world, or was it strictly from the perspective of making games? So
Okay,
majority.
if you don't mind, I have a few things to add for the
Oh yeah,
portfolio
for
bit
sure.
too, getting into Sheridan. Um, on top of that, I would advocate for demonstrating as many skills as you have, and if you currently don't possess them, um, try to learn them as quick as possible just to demonstrate your ability to learn and pick up on them. Because as Leann pointed out, the program kind of sets you up to be a generalist. So they teach you everything from art, programming, level design, writing, business stuff. So if you can show in your portfolio that you have a bit of coding, you can do a bit of writing, you can do a bit of level design, you can do a bit of art, that bodes well for you as opposed to someone who leaned more heavily towards one thing in their portfolio.
Yeah, I also want to add, I completely forgot to say this before, but make games. Even if you don't know how to make a video game, just think about, if I were to make a game, what would I do? How would I kind of go about that? So just from the design perspective, just say, I'm going to make a board game, right? And here are some of the things that I want in my board game. Things like that, and just get more of a hands-on experience. Right. Do they teach about the business of the gaming world, or is it strictly from a perspective of making games? So definitely, majority of it is the perspective of making games. A lot of it is more focused on that. However, there is some, especially in third year, there are a couple of courses that do touch on more of the business side of things. And again, that's not going to be the majority of their experience, but if you just want kind of a basic understanding of more of the business side, so things like finances and documentation and communication, those sorts of things are touched on in third year. And again, they have changed the program, I think 2 years. Like people who are in second year now are doing a different course material than what I did. So some of that might be different. In my experience, we did some basic business stuff. Are there any other questions?
Okay. Okay. Nobody else is going to say anything. I'm just going to ask a final question. And this one might be personal, so you can just shut it down if you need to. But what's next
What's next?
for you?
So I'm not 100% sure long term. Short term, I have some things lined up. Or okay, I have immediate short term, and I have way long term, and I don't have that middle piece. Immediate short term is I have some things lined up for over the summer for the next few months. I am in the process of looking for long-term employment, but right now I'm doing more kind of freelance work. Um, long term, I know there's not uh, much of a games industry right now in Jamaica, and I'd really love to, be part of changing that. Whether it's starting or helping to start a studio that's based here, I think that would be a fantastic opportunity. I'd love to be a part of that. Um, And then in the middle is just a big old question mark. It's get experience question mark. I don't know how or where, but that's the goal. Do I have a preference between indie, AAA, or in between? I don't have personal experience with AAA, so I can only say like in theory. I think there are pros and cons to both. With indie, you wear a lot of hats. You get to, work in multiple roles. So you might be an artist and a writer and a designer, something like that. Um, which I think can be fun. I think certain types of people would enjoy that. Um, but with triple A, because it's bigger and more structured, it tends to be you are here as a writer, you are going to write, and then depending on the size of the company, it might even just be you are going to write this specific thing. You are going to write, item descriptions, and that's it. That's the only thing you're allowed to write. And it's a lot more um, that you have less input into what you're able to do. However, from how do I say this? I guess from a job security perspective, triple A, you might have more job security. There are more benefits to your job. You might have like other packages included other than just here's your money at the end of the day. Um, in these spaces tend to be less secure. You never really know what's going to happen. Um, so definitely pros and cons to both sides, I think.
All right, great. Um, well, if there are no further questions, I think we can wrap up. If that's the case, I just want to say thank you. It was an awesome presentation. I really appreciate the perspective. I think a lot of people within this Discord in particular look at game design and development only from a programmer lens. So understanding it from an art and getting appreciation from it from that perspective is definitely useful. Um, Especially for some of the younger members who are going to be looking to apply to universities in very, very, very short order. Uh, so yeah, thank you, Leann. Thank you, Steve. Stever.net. All right,
Yo,
Steve.
no, it's just Stevie. It's cool. Cool. Yeah, no problem. It's I've been a part of this Discord for a minute, but honestly, I'm not that active. Feel bad.
No worries, no worries. There are many lurkers, but as long as somebody can get some value, that's the entire point of this Discord, right?
True. Yeah, I'm like, I guess similar to Leanne, we've just been on like the grind after school's been done. Still kind of gotta look for stable job positions and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like the process right now. But yeah, if anybody wants to ask any questions or catch up on anything, or get some input, as you were saying, from like a purely design perspective, Leanne says her DMs are open, my DMs are open too. um you know Shoot us a message anytime. I guess I could say right here is that my focus was more UX UI design. That's what I've specialized in coming onto the program as well.
Excellent. Excellent. I'd also encourage both you and Leanne to check out the community to join thread. Specifically, check out Gig, the Game Industry Gathering. It's a wonderful place, especially if you're looking for next steps. Um, yeah.
Okay, sounds
All
good.
right.
Thank you very much.
Mhm. All right. And that's it for now. Thank you for the time again. I think we can wrap up. Um, and I just can't thank you enough for taking time putting this together and this, doing this. Apologies again for starting a little bit late, but yeah.
Yeah, no worries. I was really happy to help and provide some information.
Okay. All right, everyone. You don't need to go home, and that's it for the presentation. Feel free to hang around in the chat and poke around.